Listen, you know what time it is. It's time for another episode of your favorite new podcast entitled We Hate You, Internet! All right, we back. Okay, listen. I hope that you guys have fun with that intro because I enjoy it every time I do it. It's funny every time. But anyway, it's me. It's Wilbur Hamilton. We back once again for episode 3 of this podcast entitled We Hate You, Internet. You know, for those that are just tuning in, this is your first time listening, welcome. You know what I mean? You missed some stuff. Go back and check that other episodes, episode 1 and 2, introduction. Last week we talked about courting and dating. You know what I'm saying? We got into some stuff. And what we try to do on this podcast is to have healthy discussion. You know what I mean? I want to come out the rip and this is no joke. We have healthy discussion and discussion that we hope is balanced and beneficial. That's always the objective. I'm sorry, I didn't even introduce my co-host.
I know, I was waiting. I'm like,
I saw you looking like, that's not what we rehearsed.
He's off script.
Go ahead, Bob.
I'm Clara. I'm excited for this next topic of ours. But yeah, if you haven't checked out the other few episodes, go ahead and listen in. And yeah, I'm excited to get into it. You ready to get straight into it? How are you feeling?
Well, I mean, like I said, I always been trying to get a little brief introduction. How you feeling? Everything going well in your life? Life treating you all right?
Life's good.
Life is good. Okay. I concur. Life is good. Okay, I guess we get into it then.
Awesome.
Right? We got a lot to cover, man. We're going to try to get into We Hate You Internet podcast is all about. So, for today's topic, we want to talk about CHAT GPT. That's you heard that AI, the AI voice. We want to get into it. I mean, it's kind of it's the new horizon.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a lot of discussion about it. And we want to kind of get into it and hopefully shed some light and some perspective on it.
I know, it's such an exciting topic. There's so many different ways to view it and look at it. I think that I don't know, I'm really excited to get straight into it because one of the things that we, I guess in general, even before the podcast, even before deciding to get into all this, we would always talk about the psychology of things or how it has the effect on the human psyche and things like that. So it's just so interesting, like when we start talking about AI, like and its incorporation into our entire civilization and how it could possibly affect us. So thinking about these things, bearing these questions in mind, like, okay, well, what is this? What is artificial intelligence? What is it going to have? How is it going to affect how we grow, how we learn, how we function, how we do things and stuff like that? It's just so interesting. So I'm really excited to get straight into the topic. But one of the things that I feel is one of the most exciting parts of the topic that Hamilton actually told me about is how AI affects original thought. And I kind of want you to dissect that a little bit because it's just so interesting. Well, what when we think of original thought, what do you think?
What
comes to mind with original thought?
Okay. Can I before I jump in, I just want to kind of just touch on what CHAT GPT is, just
Sure.
for those that may not be altogether aware. It stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Trainer, I believe. Goodness gracious, I just had it. Okay. I'm prepared and didn't read his notes properly. But basically, I'll say in layman's terms, right? So like it's basically a software that's designed to give searching and searching on the internet like more of a human interface, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it kind of and it's AI driven, so where you can ask it questions and it can generate results that are
they mimic an intelligence almost.
Correct. And so you can basically ask it anything and it'll give you an answer. So unlike the internet where you have to type in information and it gives you all these articles and different things you can look at, it will basically just take a compilation of of a large compound of information that's available, and then give you an answer based on the question that you're asking, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously, like I said, it could be really helpful. It could be a really beneficial tool. But
Yeah.
now going into your question, this is one of the things that I thought about, right? Like, how will that affect original thought? You know what I mean? Because you think about, right? We always try on the show. We always try to go back into the natural form of a human, right? His natural design, and human, like, most of the time, the advancement that we've made or has been driven by curiosity, right? Like, there are certain things that you know, or that is common knowledge, I guess, or that is accepted knowledge, and then there are aspects that are still unknown. You may still have some questions, or the answer that you may receive may not sit well with you. So then it leads you to, it brings forth a certain level of curiosity, and then that curiosity motivates you to find an answer, to do research and find an answer, right? And like most things that we do as human beings, we're always chasing that next dopamine hit.
Yeah, we are.
Indeed.
We always want to find out or learn more.
Exactly. And so the stage of discovery, when you discover something new, it releases that dopamine chemical in your mind, and you always want to learn new things. Now, people can get affected as they get old and they start not wanting to learn new things, but we're just talking about the advancement of humans as a whole, collectively and individually, right? It's curiosity that drives you, and that curiosity is birthed from your individual and your original thought, your ability to formulate thoughts for yourself. And where I see CHAT GPT, and this is not like I said, I'm not hating on the software. I think it can be beneficial, but it needs, like most anything, it has to be handled properly, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think that one of the things that it could be dangerous is that it can it would cause a person to surrender their original thought.
That is so true.
You know what I mean?
kind of want to add a little bit of something in there, because like, I know some people don't really, like, they still don't really understand what Chat GPT is. And I'll give an example. My professor actually, I remember before he even started the lecture, he dove straight into the topic and was saying how we had a research paper due, and how there were a few students who their research papers were just amazing, like perfect score. And this is a very difficult class. This is not a class where someone can easily get an A. It's just not. And after like going over it and trying to understand, they came to find out that it was because of Chat GPT that the students had used Chat GPT to create these perfect research papers. And essentially, I mean, you just gear it to create something around a topic that you wanted to, and it thinks for you.
It's and like, that sounds great as a student, right? I mean, like, you say, hey, do my work for me. I got you, boss.
Yeah,
and
but like, what is the effect? What does it do?
And it's just, hey man, do whatever you want it to do.
Yeah,
it's awesome,
crazy.
right? But if we're just talking about from a human development perspective, right? Like, it's important for an individual to grow.
Yeah.
And the differing perspectives and the differing experiences that human beings have individually, like, it helps to advance us as collectively. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you think about any great discoverer or any
inventor
great, exactly, like they had this famous story about Isaac Newton sitting under a tree. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if it's true or not, but like an apple falls, hits him on the head, and it's like, huh. You know what I mean? Like, what makes that thing fall and not instead of floating?
Shoot, even the caveman in fire, even if we think of that, like these little things.
How? Why?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, there may have been stories told about it being a gift from the God and all this kind of stuff, but then it's like, people start being curious. Wait a minute, that don't really make sense. But now, when you talk about a system like Chat GPT, and like, this is something that has been being cultivated for the last decade, I would say, as far as we're just gonna keep it real. I think that they have been dumbing down society. I'm not sure if it's intentional. I hope that it's not intentional, but the content, our attention spans have gotten this quick. You know what I'm saying? Like, our ability to process and actually formulate full thoughts is becoming a challenge. And it's like, because of the way that content is being digested, TikTok, and you just flip, you just like, and so you don't even have time to actually process what you're seeing on the screen.
Isn't that ironic how technology advances and it gets smarter, but society, people get, I don't want to say it.
No, man, keep it real.
But it's ironic. It's ironic though, because as
that's a very good point.
It's advancing. All these things are happening, and life is getting easier for us in a way.
Yeah.
But what it's doing is it's hindering us too. It's kind of like it's just, I find it ironic. I think it's funny.
There are two movies that come to mind.
All
right. You already get the first one.
Yeah.
Skynet. You know
yeah. Yeah. It's. I mean, you never know. No, I'm kidding. But I think that's where like it's you have to kind of know how to utilize these tools. Mm-hmm. Because when you start using it as a crutch, like you're using it to write every single paper for you, right? Mm-hmm. In this case with like the students, what's the point of you getting that degree and finishing? And if you didn't learn anything, mm-hmm. who did you do it for? You know, what are you doing it for? Then the idea of purpose kind of comes to mind. I don't know. Interesting.
No, you make some valid points, right? Like, I remember the movie WHY.I. Right?
Oh, yeah, I love that movie.
You love that movie. Yeah. You watch the movie, and it's like, post-apocalypse, they done ruined the earth, and now they trying to transport
the little fat people.
Yes. I think the proper term is overweight.
Overweight. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But they're cute. I mean,
don't try to save it now.
Well, they're in the little thingies, and
they're the little thingies. Yeah,
and they get like their smoothies, right?
They got the smoothies
with all the food and
food. It was apparently to be people, but
yeah.
But anyway, yeah. But anyway, right. So, but it's that concept, and I think, like I said, I remember reading an article or something about how a lot of times Hollywood can predict certain things. But what I really think it is, though, honestly, is that you have individuals that become privy to things.
What do you mean?
Like, there are discussions. CHAT GPT isn't like brand new. No, this is something that's been worked on for
forever.
Years. You know what I'm saying? And like, now we're just kind of getting a hold of it. But this has been in development for years, and I'm sure people heard about it. And there's thoughts that come along. Mm-hmm. There are discussions and seminars and all these kind of things that discuss these things. And as they progress, you know what I mean. And then people start, man, that's pretty interesting. And then they'll put something out into a movie to kind of make a statement without coming out and making that statement. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's just my opinion. But
do you feel like those movies are kind of like
prophetic?
Do you feel like it could be
foretelling of the future?
Well, I mean, who knows? Because, if what you mentioned with original thought, if you remove that process, what happens? And then if you remove it, not just for a day, 2 days, if you remove it and that becomes the future,
generation?
Yeah.
That's what we're discussing. That's what we're discussing, right? Like, if you rob a person of their ability to process thoughts, because listen, the brain is a muscle like anything else. You got to work it. Like, you have to learn how to process thoughts. You have to learn how to process emotions.
Yeah.
Like, how to like properly like deal with stimuli, like all these things are like, you learn these things. Mm-hmm. But if you're not given the opportunity or
the experience,
exactly. If you don't have the if you don't go through the process of developing these skills, these mental skills, like, then you do not function as you ought to as a full-grown human being. Mm-hmm. And your body still grows, but mentally, like, you are immature. And so, like, and like I said, so we talked about this, right? So, like, because of the internet, and I mentioned this in the last episode about human beings being born, they're not omnipresent. They're born in one place.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? By design, human beings we are bombarded by so much negativity because negativity gets attention.
Yeah.
Obviously, you talk about a fire and people gonna stop and look at the fire versus people gonna stop and look at all these pretty roses. Like some people may stop and look, but most people gonna drive by that. There's a fire on the side of the road though. Everybody rubbernecking.
I know,
what I'm
traffic
saying?
and
exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Cuz gotta ride by.
Yeah.
Take that
Slowly record.
Yeah, man, exactly. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, we're constantly bombarded with negativity. But I want to say this with as much sensitivity as possible. But it just got to be said, right? Like, you're not meant to know or be exposed to all the negativity in the world.
Yeah.
Right? It would like a tsunami that happens on the other side of the world. That's not your problem. And like I said, that's the incentive. That's what I want to be seen. It's a difficult thing for them.
But there's not much you can do about it.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but the issue is that you take on that stress,
Yes.
that anxiety, or you hear about some kids getting kidnapped, or God forbid, you know what I'm saying, like some type of like child predator ring, or like, you know, human trafficking, whatever, in 5 states over. And you're like, and then you hold your kids, you let them go outside. You know what I mean? Like, but there's nothing going on in your neck of the woods.
You know what? That actually brings to mind because there was a point in time where I was actually, myself personally, I used to feel a lot of anxiety and over things like that, like articles. And this was around the time with when the war with Ukraine had actually just came up. And I remember I was almost like obsessed with just looking at the news, and I had to stop because I forgot who I spoke to about this, but after reading about it, this psychologist had mentioned that the body does not recognize if a real fear, like something that's happening in reality, and something that's happening on the phone. Like, if you are watching a movie of, like, a horror movie, and your body is pumping adrenaline and is scared, it's going to do the same thing. It doesn't recognize that bear that's chasing you and the simulation is fake, you know? It doesn't recognize that because the hormones are still the same. The hormones are the hormones, and you're still going to feel that fear, and that's what you're feeding yourself. So when you're looking at things like this, or media or topics like this, that same fear that you're feeling in your body, like that panic, that's the same as if you were in that, and that's what you're doing to yourself.
Listen, I mean, yeah, that's really powerful, and that's a really powerful thing. It goes right into the point that I'm making. Like, we're not designed to know all the trouble that's in the world. You're born in one place. You only have to deal with the trouble that's in your town, in your neighborhood, in your house, whatever. And everything in life comes in its phases, right? You have trouble that affects me, and I have to go through a season of trouble, and then that season will pass, and then I have some time of peace where I can pick up the pieces, just like a storm. Like, a storm goes through, it blows people's houses down. It's sad, some people lose lives, and then after that, the sun shines, and it's like everything's at peace.
Yeah.
And then you go and start picking up the pieces and rebuild. You don't just leave everything in turmoil and like rubble. You start rebuilding. You know what I mean? And then you find some time to kind of find some normality into your life again. That's the way that the human experience is supposed to be experienced. That's the way it's natural design to function that way.
Yeah.
But because of the internet, we're open to every trauma, every bat, and then so you're constantly on this psychological
like roller
edge.
coaster.
Yeah,
you know?
and you're like, that's why people like say this anxiety is so bad with people, because you are afraid. You're in a constant state of like unease, and it's not you're
unknowingness too.
Yes, indeed. And so you're not designed to function like that. You're not designed to be like, you're designed, like you said, your body is designed to respond to trouble or danger. And your body also, you become superhuman, you run super fast, you become super strong, because them chemicals hit you out of that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm like, well, anyway, you know what I'm saying? Depending on what horror movie you're watching, but I'm not gonna get in there. But anyway, your body is naturally designed to respond, to flee, to preserve your life. You know what I'm saying? But then when it's over, you calm down. Your body regulates back to its standard mode. and then like you're able to kind of think rationally again. Before that, it's just flee, escape, go. You're running, step on glass and everything.
Yeah.
You're out of that. You know what I'm saying? Cat get shot and still run.
Yeah.
Then he fall down later around the block. But that's pretty funny. But
you know what? Even to an extent, because it still goes deep into your psyche too. Like if you're constantly consuming stuff like this, it becomes a part of you. It does. And when you're, anxious and you don't know why, it could be because of the things that are coming into your space. And it may not be your physical space, but it could be your mental space.
Of course. I think the mental space is even more important than the physical sometimes, because like the physical you can see.
Yeah.
It comes and it goes and like, okay, it's over. But the mental can stick with you wherever you go. It'll just stick. You know what I mean? Like if you don't learn how to dispel it, it will ride with you forever. You know what I'm saying? It'll change your whole life. And so I definitely think that maintaining a healthy mental space is very important. But like I said, the internet makes it, social media, I would say that aspect of the internet really makes it very difficult to do that. And so see, this is where we be in trouble sometimes.
But you know what though?
We gonna run down the street and get where we going.
I feel like it relates though very, very heavily with like CHAT GPT.
Yeah.
And because
good job, ladies. We can bring us back.
It does though. It does because like at least with the fact that you mentioned that mental space, it is important, and sometimes even more important than the very physical space that we are in. And I think that all in all, with even with those experiences of like what you're consuming, what you're not consuming is also important, because just because you're not having all these negative things, well, what are you supplying your body with? An experience, I think, is one of the most important things to supply your mental space with, because this is how we learn. We learn through experience. We learn through going through these things. And when we have something like CHAT GPT that robs you of that, and you're like, you don't even have to think for yourself. I really with this idea of AI, I always like to kind of reference it like how I feel like humans are kind of building the very cage that we're going to reside in. Like we're creating these things, these tools, and then what will be left for us? Like what are we supposed to do? And that's not to discourage the innovation and the creation. No, not at all, because I think that in a lot of ways it's beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
It is supposed to help our society. But then like it also comes down to like, okay, well, purpose. What is purpose? What is our purpose? What is the purpose of these things? Because I mean, we don't want to be that hamster in the wheel. You know what I mean? We don't want to be that the animal in the cage, because that's what it'll become. And in a mental sense, I think more than anything else.
Your new habit.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious life.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's a little scary sometimes. I mean, you're not careful.
I would agree 100%. Like, sometimes we on the main road, and then we see that dirt road. We're like, man, let me go and see what's going on in this dirt road. We get way down the street. But anyway, but good job. We found our way back. This is the point that I was making. We're exposed to so much negativity that we have developed, I believe, an unhealthy fear for each other as human beings. People don't trust people, and that's and like there are people that are dangerous, like that have ill intent and stuff like that. But I think the majority of people don't have ill intent, or not all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like people aren't trying to do you harm, but because we're exposed to so much negativity
from everywhere.
Exactly. We've developed a appetite, or we've developed a unhealthy fear for humanity, for each other. So now you take that and you say, okay, but CHAT GPT, though it sounds like a human, is not human. So we feel like we can trust the computer. We can trust the software. And that's where the danger zone is, because you combine the two facts of that we've become lazy in our minds and we don't really like to think, and you couple that with our unhealthy fear for humanity, and all of a sudden a desire to just let the computer, to wholly trust the computer because it's easy and it's not a person telling you, so you can trust it.
Yeah.
At that point, you have just surrendered your own original. You can find yourself in a position where you have surrendered your original thought. You've surrendered your ability to form your own identity.
Yeah.
So basically, anything that you ask Chat GPT anything, and it'll give you an answer, right? Like I remember I was listening to maybe another podcast or something, an interview or something, and they were saying like they asked Chat GPT to create a rap in the style of Tupac about something, cats and dogs or something mundane, and it start putting lyrics together, and it compiles all the lyrics that Tupac has done, and then it starts to look at his phrasing and the way that he puts words together, and then it starts to like talk about cats and dogs in the way that Tupac would. Now, how accurate it is, who knows? But at the fact that it would generate that kind of an answer,
and it would sound
and then so then the person would be like, wow, you can ask it literally
amazing.
anything. I mean, yeah, amazing. Silly. But you can ask it anything, right? And so then at that point, you give it your trust, and then whatever you ask it is the truth. So then, so once you reach that point, right, you no longer think for yourself.
Yeah.
Whatever Chat GPT tells you is the truth. And so now I don't have to think about stuff. So then, if I'm curious, I just ask Chat GPT, and whatever Chat GPT tells me, that's true.
And people already do it with the whole, well, Google it. You know, oh, I don't know what this is, or do you know how this is that?
Yeah.
Just Google it.
So, but the only thing about different with the Google, I'm with you. The only thing that's different with Google is that it gives you multiple options.
And you're able to still in itself kind of
dissect, look at it, look and see how
and
you
decide.
Exactly. But with that, it gives you a straight answer, and then you just say, oh, that is the answer.
That is true.
So then you no longer think for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because you have not developed, like the next generation, you have not developed the muscles in your mind to process thoughts.
You know what's funny? That one of my professors in management, he says that one of the critiques of multiple businesses on this generation is that they cannot critically think. Yeah. They lack critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that kind of like, maybe in some ways, is that the effects of the technology previous to Chat GPT? You know, the whole. So it's interesting because I think that it does.
I definitely listen. We talked about. I mean, we're gonna try to touch this thing up here in a second. We talk about in order for you to create, you have to be able to wield whatever tool it is you need, right? So. In order for you to so what it could essentially do is rob you of your creativity, which is to rob you of your own, once again, rob you of your own capability and your own self. You'll come to a point where you no longer trust your own ability. You know what I'm saying? You feel that your ability doesn't compare, and I don't have to try. I don't have to create. I don't have to do anything. I can just ask Chat GPT, and it'll give me whatever it is that I want or what I need. But then, like you say, where does that leave the individual? Where does that leave the human being as a person? Where does that leave the human species? If we're no longer curious, if we're no longer sharpening our minds to be able to wield the tools necessary to be creative, then where does that leave us?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, WHY.I is cute and everything, and the people end up getting treadmills and losing weight, and they were all fit when they came to the new planet. If you watch the credits, and they were able to find themselves. But then there's another movie out there that gives a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah.
Where there were these certain machines, right? They had the ability to time travel. They send some folk back, you know what I'm saying? Send a machine on a mission, you know what I'm saying, to take care of the business.
To take care of the business. Yeah, exactly.
Send that boy back. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't tripped about the fact that he was naked. He said, hey, you have everything you need when you get there. You know what I'm saying? But you got your orders. Go take care of that business. Find this man and put him away. You know what I mean? And so Terminator, obviously, the movie is Terminator. And everybody,
for
like
those that don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so the youngsters out there. But and like when you talk about this type of, that's the thought that comes to mind. machines finding that human beings have become obsolete. They become self-aware. They find that people are obsolete, or they are the problem with the planet. And then it says, well, then if we get rid of them, everything should be fine.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're fighting against the machines.
Yeah.
That's a daggone war. But
you know what, though? I kind of want to, like, so one of the things, though, that I think we should acknowledge for the sake of positivity, right, is that in a lot of ways, I feel like it also can be very helpful. Like with the idea that AI now, I read a few articles, one of which being that AI, they want to use it to research medication. How do like come up with the right types of proteins and all this stuff. And the article was speaking on the fact that AI could save so much time, so much money, and so many resources because it's a machine just generating information and trying to find the right the right formula or whatever. And then, but on the flip side, there's another article of AI in the medical field saying that AI can now be used to diagnose patients and essentially give them medication and address like their issues. So the question comes, well, we need doctors, but we've talked about this before, and one of the things that I think that, though it may sound scary and though it may be a little like, oh my God, like obviously we don't want to lose our humanity, right? There are so many things that we still haven't accomplished yet as people. Like I have a lot of nurses in my family, and there's some nurses who they are so overworked. They have like more than the legal amount of patients that they are allowed to have, and this is where things like malpractice happen. You know, they may give the wrong medication or whatever. Their staffing is bad, so it's kind of like it's a topic where it's important to address like the scary side of things, because it's true. You know, these students that will eventually become these professionals that we will rely on, we want them to learn what they need to learn. We want them to gain the experience that they need to experience, because we obviously don't want, you know, who would you trust? You know what I mean? The dentist that did his paper on with CHAT GPT, or the one that actually did the research. So of course the obvious answer is the person with the experience. So
indeed.
But
so we right at our time. We're gonna wrap this up, and we're gonna follow with a part 2. One thing that I will say though is that I think the one thing that should always be taken away from this, and the one thing I want people to really take away from this discussion overall, is that you still have power. You still have the power to choose. You still have the power to develop yourself. You can use the tool. Just don't let the tool use you. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Like, don't let the tool replace you. We still in the driver's seat here, and so we don't have to be afraid. You just have to be mindful. That's all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we're gonna wrap this up. We're gonna definitely follow with a part 2 for next week, because it was awesome, and we have so much more that we want to discuss. So stay tuned. Oh, also, man, listen. Hit that subscribe button, man. Follow, like, wherever it is you're going to find us everywhere anyway. Join the conversation, man. There should be a lot of things going on in the comment section, and help us develop new topics we will talk about in the future. This is a space not only for just me and Miss Clara. You know, that's put that proper accent on it. But it's also a space that we want to create for you as well. So tune in, man. Help us. Come get some of this. It's good stuff. That's going to be it for this episode. Stay tuned, and we'll come back with another.